There are victories that save kingdoms, and there are victories that doom the entire universe. Tarakasura's victory was the second kind. He did not conquer the heavens with treachery. He did not steal his power in the dark. He earned it through pain so extreme, so absolute, that even the gods had no choice but to bow. For thousands of years, Tarakasura stood on one leg at the peak of Mount Mandara. The sun scorched him. The rain lashed him. Winters buried him under ice. He did not move. He did not eat. He did not sleep. He chanted only one name: Brahma, Brahma, Brahma. And when Brahma finally appeared before him in a blaze of golden light, Tarakasura made one request: let only the son of Shiva be capable of killing me. Brahma granted the boon, and in that single moment, the cosmos cracked, because everyone in the three worlds knew one terrible truth. Lord Shiva had just lost Sati, his beloved wife, his reason for living. She had walked into the sacred fire at her father Daksha's yajna. She had burned herself alive rather than hear another word spoken against her husband. And Shiva, the destroyer of worlds, the one who holds the third eye that can reduce creation to ash, had collapsed into grief so complete, so consuming, that he had walked away from everything. He had sealed himself in Mount Kailash. He was meditating, alone, unreachable, which meant Shiva would never have a son, which meant Tarakasura could never be killed, which meant the boon was not just a shield. It was a sentence, a death sentence, for every living being in creation. So ask yourself this: how do you defeat an enemy whose protection was granted by the Creator himself? How do you reach a God who has closed his eyes to the world? And what price must the universe pay when grief becomes the greatest weapon of all? Tarakasura did not waste a single moment. The moment Brahma's boon settled into his bones, he looked at the sky and smiled, and then he marched. His army was not made of ordinary soldiers. His generals were ancient asuras who had fought in wars before this universe was formed. His war elephants were the size of mountains. His chariots left rivers of fire across the sky. And Tarakasura himself, enormous, dark as a storm cloud, with eyes like burning coals, stood at the center of this vast catastrophe and called out to Indra.
Come out, king of the gods. Today your reign ends.
Indra came. Of course he came. He was the Lord of Heaven. He carried the Vajra, the thunderbolt weapon that had never failed him. He had defeated asuras before. He had always won. He did not win this time. The battle was violent and brief. Indra's thunderbolt struck Tarakasura in the chest. Tarakasura barely flinched. He caught Indra's elephant Airavata by the trunk, lifted the entire animal into the air, and threw it across the sky like a stone. Indra fled. Varuna fled. Agni fled. Yama fled. One by one, every god in the heavens turned and ran. Tarakasura walked into Swarga, into the palace of the gods, and sat down on Indra's throne. He looked around at the trembling servants, the scattering devas, the abandoned gardens of paradise, and he simply said,
"This is mine now."
And it was. For years, the gods lived as refugees. No temples, no prayers reaching them, no offerings, no purpose. They had been stripped of everything, but here is what broke them most. The very boon that protected Tarakasura had come from Brahma, one of their own sacred trinity. The cosmos itself had authorized this destruction, and the only way out, the only possible way out, required a god who had shut the world out entirely, a god deep in grief, a god who had loved Sati so completely that her death had taken everything from him. But here is what no one tells you about Shiva's grief. It had not made him weaker, it had made him infinite. Kailash was not a mountain during those years. It was a wound. Shiva sat at its peak, perfectly still, locked in meditation so deep that seasons passed around him like shadows. Snow gathered on his matted hair. The Ganga flowing from his locks slowed to barely a trickle, The crescent moon above his head lost its light. The world around him had gone quiet in a way that wasn't peace. It was the quiet of held breath, of a universe waiting. The gods came to the edge of Kailash and they wept. They called out to Shiva. They described what Tarakasura had done. The burning cities, the silenced temples, the children without homes, the prayers that went nowhere. They begged him to return, to take a wife again, to father a son who could save creation. Shiva did not open his eyes. He could hear them. That much was clear. A slight tension moved across his jaw. His breathing changed for just a moment. But he did not open his eyes, because Sati was not just his wife. She was his other half, the Shakti to his Shiva, the energy to his consciousness. Without her, he was complete in meditation but empty in the world. And the wound of her death was not simply grief. It was a question he could not stop asking himself. Why did she have to go? And here is where the cosmos made its most extraordinary move. Sati had not disappeared. She had been reborn. In the kingdom of the Himalayas, King Himavan and his queen Meena had prayed for a divine daughter, and Sati, the same soul, the same Shakti reborn in a new form, had descended into their home as a small girl with dark eyes and a smile that made the mountain flowers bloom out of season. They named her Parvati, and from the time she could walk, Parvati knew one thing with absolute certainty. Shiva was her husband in this life and every life that had come before. She climbed to Kailash as a young woman, not to beg, not to plead. She came to serve, bringing flowers, cleaning the path around him, keeping the sacred fires lit, sitting in her own meditation just steps away from his, day after day, season after season. Still, Shiva did not open his eyes, so the gods turned to someone else. They went to Kamadeva, the god of love, the only one in all creation whose arrow could pierce even the deepest meditation, and they asked him to do the unthinkable, shoot Shiva. Kamadeva knew what they were asking. He knew the risk. He looked at his wife Rati, and he held her hands, and he told her, whatever happens today, know that I love you. He climbed Kailash. He drew his bow of sugarcane. He fitted the flower-tipped arrow of desire. He aimed at the greatest ascetic in all existence, and he fired. The arrow struck for one heartbeat, just one. Shiva's eyes opened, and he saw Parvati, really saw her. Saw the devotion in her face, the quiet certainty of her love. The Sati he had lost returned to him in a new form, standing in the snow, covered in flowers, waiting. And then he understood what had broken his meditation. His third eye opened. A column of fire erupted from between his brows. Not the gentle fire of sacrifice, but the absolute fire of destruction. The fire that will end this universe when its time comes. It turned in the air. It found Kamadeva, and Kamadeva burned, not wounded, not punished, burned completely, reduced to nothing in a fraction of a second. Rati's scream echoed through the three worlds. The gods fell back in terror. Even Parvati flinched. And then, silence. But something had happened in that one heartbeat when Shiva's eyes had opened. Something that couldn't be taken back. The wound in Shiva had cracked open, not healed, cracked like ice in spring. The grief was still there, immense and bottomless. But Parvati was also there. And she was real, and she was waiting. Shiva looked at her for a long moment. Then he closed his eyes again. But the world had changed. Parvati did not weep. She did not leave. She looked at the ash where Kamadeva had stood, and she made a decision. If Shiva needed a wife worthy of his depths, she would become that wife. She removed her jewelry, her fine clothes, her royal comforts. She stood in the forest barefoot. She began her own tapasya, her own absolute austerity. In summer, she sat surrounded by 4 fires with the sun blazing above her, 5 fires total. In winter, she stood in freezing water to her neck. She ate nothing. She slept nothing. The universe watched, astonished. A mortal woman was matching the austerity of Shiva himself, and slowly, the way dawn does not announce itself but simply arrives, Shiva began to listen. Shiva came to Parvati not as a god. He came as a wandering beggar, ragged, covered in ash, carrying a skull, and he told her everything wrong about Shiva. He is homeless. He has no family. He wears snakes. He dances in cremation grounds. He is not a husband. He is not someone you wait for. Parvati listened to every word, and then, quietly, firmly, without anger, she said, I know exactly who he is, and I am exactly who he needs. Now stop wasting my time. The disguise fell away. Shiva stood before her in his true form, radiant, terrible, tender, infinite, and he asked her to marry him. The wedding of Shiva and Parvati was not just a celebration. It was the universe breathing again. Brahma performed the ceremony. The gods, still homeless, still displaced, came and wept with relief. The mountains sang. The rivers ran backwards for a moment in joy. Kamadeva, granted a blessing by Parvati, returned to form in the hearts of all beings, invisible now, but present everywhere. And when Shiva and Parvati were finally together again, Shiva and Shakti, consciousness and energy, reunited. The conditions were in place. The cosmos had done what no army could do. It had reached into the darkness of a god's grief and found a way through. But Tarakasura was still on Indra's throne, and the son who would defeat him had not yet been born. What happened next? The ancient texts describe as a moment of pure cosmic fire. From Shiva and Parvati's union, a light was born so intense, so blindingly powerful, that it could not be contained in any single place. It radiated outward, the seed of a divine consciousness, of a warrior, yet unborn. The gods could not hold it. The earth could not hold it. Even Agni, the fire god, who was sent to carry the sacred energy, burned with a heat beyond his own. He carried the light to the river Ganga. Ganga carried it to the reeds along her banks, the Sharavana grass that gave the child his first resting place. And there, in the golden reeds, 6 divine sparks of light were found by 6 women, the Kritikas, the star mothers of the Pleiades. Each one nursed a child. Each one held him, fed him, loved him. And when the 6 forms merged into one, a boy stood in the reeds. 6 faces, 12 arms, eyes like morning suns, a peacock beside him who had chosen him as its lord. A spear in his hand that had been forged not in any fire on earth, but in the core of the cosmos itself. This was Kartikeya, also called Skanda, also called Murugan, also called Shanmukha, the one with 6 faces, each face looking in a different direction, watching over the entire world at once. The gods fell to their knees. Indra himself stepped forward and placed the title of Senapati, commander of the divine armies, upon the boy's shoulders, and Kartikeya accepted it without pride, without hesitation. He simply looked toward the horizon where Tarakasura's dark kingdom spread across the stolen heavens, and he raised his spear. What followed was not a battle. It was the settling of a cosmic debt. Tarakasura knew the moment had arrived. The intelligence had reached him. Shiva's son had been born. The only being capable of killing him was alive and coming. He assembled every army he had ever built. He called every asura general who had served him. He fortified the 3 great aerial cities, the Tripura, with walls that no weapon had ever pierced. He placed his finest warriors at every gate, and then he waited. Kartikeya's army of divine warriors, the Devas, the Ganas, the celestial forces that had been scattered for years, reassembled around him. Indra mounted Airavata again. Agni brought his chariot of fire. Vayu, the wind god, moved through the ranks and made every banner stand straight. The 2 armies met in the sky. The war was total. Lightning and spears crossed between clouds. Divine mountains were hurled as weapons. Rivers of fire ran through the battlefield. Tarakasura's generals fell one by one. Shumba, Mahisha's allies, ancient warriors who had stood for ages. Each one fell before Kartikeya's relentless advance. Tarakasura himself finally came forward. He was magnificent even in darkness, enormous, ancient, carrying the power of his great boon like armor. He had earned this strength through real sacrifice. He had bled for it. And he knew, as every warrior knows, that he had arrived at the moment his entire life had been building toward. He threw everything at Kartikeya: mountains, fire, illusion, ancient weapons that predated this universe. Kartikeya deflected them all. He moved through the battlefield like the son of Shiva, utterly calm, utterly precise. The way a storm looks peaceful from above, even as it tears apart the earth below. And then he raised the bell, his sacred spear, and he threw it. It struck Tarakasura in the chest, and the asura, who could only be killed by Shiva's son, was killed. His great form collapsed. The sky cleared. The stolen throne of heaven stood empty. Indra wept, not from sorrow, from relief so complete it had nowhere else to go. The gods returned to their homes. The temples were lit again. Prayers found their way upward. The world remembered what it was to live without terror. If this story moved something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop in the comments, whose story should we tell next? Kartikeya's war with Surapadman, the full tale of Sati and Daksha's yajna, or the mystery of the Kritikas, the 6 mothers who raised a god? Jai Skanda, Jai Murugan, Jai Shanmukha.